And introducing Jane is very difficult or very easy because, I mean, she's brilliant. She has a lot of energy and she is super fast as well. And she is a serial entrepreneur with a lot of successful exits. So the floor is yours, Jane.
Thank you. Right. So I'm Jane. I've actually realized that I know a lot of you here. It's been fun seeing some faces of people I've known for 20 years or even longer. It's great. I am not actually a computer person. Once upon a time, I was studying psychology at Stanford, and I had some term papers to type, and was then and am still a lousy typist. I make lots of errors. This is in '79. I could not afford to pay somebody else to type my papers. But on the way between where I lived in my dorm and my classes, the shortest way was through a time-sharing computer center called LOTS. And I noticed that there people could type and then correct their typing errors before they printed things out, so they could actually do that. Okay, that was fantastic and wonderful. I had a chance of being able to turn in my term papers and actually getting the credits I needed that quarter. Great. So with a week left of term, my finals were over. I got an account at this time-sharing place and sat there day and night for a week typing. I was a very lousy typist. Then I was slow and bad. Now I'm fast and bad. And after a couple days, the guys there, because they were all guys, '79, they were really, well, there were 5 women and hundreds of men. I was one of the 5. Said, oh, geez, there's a girl there, and she's here all the time. So they made friends. And I've spent the rest of my life with computer people because of them. Okay? So that's what the machine I started off on, correcting my typos. Right, so what do? I start companies. These are the ones I've done the last 15, 20 years, 15, 16 years now. Bluetail was what we did when we got Erlang out of Ericsson. I guess I was the one who got Erlang out of Ericsson open source. Erlang has been a wonderful success, and it's because it is a fantastic programming language. Absolutely fantastic, which was the right programming language at the right time. Its timing was excellent. Okay. We use that to do Bluetail. Klarna, a lot of you know of. It does payments, basically, on the internet. Lensway, those of you who have glasses really ought to think about buying them from Lensway, because you can upload a picture of yourself, the one you like, and then put glasses on your face and look at the way you look, actually. Okay? This is a very good thing, rather than having to take your glasses off and then not seeing yourself when you're trying on these things. Excellent. You can also buy contact lenses on the net. Teclo Networks, I sold we made TCP IP optimization, made LTE networks around 60% faster. We sold that. The deal was closed exactly 3 weeks ago today. So I'm fresh out of that one. It was a management team of Tobii doing their handicap stuff. First investor, then board member, then CEO for Ellen, which is probiotic tampons. One that wasn't IT. Panopticon, data analytics. Mecon was a physics motor for computer games, game of kids, right? So that in this computer game, this is the gravity level, this is the friction level, that sort of thing. This is how thick the air is. Libego was also a handicap product, digital pocket memory. Midsummer uses the machines that were otherwise used to make DVDs, and instead of doing DVD on plastic, they do solar cells on stainless steel, which means they're very good quality, around 15%, I believe, efficiency. And what's really good about them is that they're on stainless steel. So you drop them, it's about like dropping a spoon. It doesn't break, right? So if a goat walks on them, that's fine, no problem. You can put them, you can bump them, you can throw them to the back of your car. They don't have to be in some sort of a rigid frame, as most solar cells do, because they're with about a micron thick of silicon. Telco games was a great idea. People with feature phones really want to play some sort of a game while waiting for the bus. Fantastic idea. We were between the games developers and the mobile network operators. And then Apple came with a better idea. What the hell are the mobile network operators earning any money on this for? Let's go from the games developers to the users directly, right? Much better idea, so we died quickly. Sunline invested in, and within a month it was dead because I didn't check whether they had a shareholders agreement before I did that. Anyway, that's what I do. I should add another one. I've just invested in one more. So the more I work, the better it goes. The ones that have gone really badly, over here. The ones that have gone really well are up there, or over there. So I'm trying to learn that so that I'm saying, okay, I can't take more than about 2, 3, and I have to be active in them. I have to actually work in them. I have to be one of the gang. And why is that? I think it's because I've been in so many startups. Not only these, I did 3 when I was much younger, plus my father had a few companies, my mother had a few companies, my sister has companies, her husband has companies, my daughter has a company. The whole family is only companies, right? So it just is, right? I think my daughter's had 3 so far. So I know, I can feel it when I need to get nervous. And I can feel it when everybody else is nervous and I'm not nervous at all. It's okay, not a problem. It's okay. And I think that's actually very useful to have somebody like me who's done 15 startups or thereabouts, and 5 of them world-class successes. To have somebody like me in a startup saying, oh, well, sure, I'll take out the trash, no problem. And I'll do this and I'll do that, and I'll be part of customer service, and I will pick and pack contact lenses, and I will, at the moment, the new one, I'll call Karlstad's come in and say, we need to build a factory, you gonna help us? Right, so I was, how do I choose these things? I'm always getting this question. I always think about Porter's 5 factors, okay? Porter is named Michael Porter. He's a very famous Harvard professor, extremely famous Harvard professor. This is one of his main theories, the different factors in your strategic position, okay? And no startup has all these right, okay? Nobody. Do not expect it. But basically, if you have only a few customers, 1 to 1,000 or thereabouts possible, they end up negotiating. They know their power. They negotiate too hard. So that you end up with very long sales cycles. You end up with much lower prices than you can survive on. You end up being eaten by your customer. They say, well, we won't actually buy from you, we'll buy you. Or if there are few enough of them, let's say, we won't buy from you, and pretty soon you're going to go in bankruptcy, aren't you? You know, you can have a job with us if you like. Okay, that's a customer power, right? Suppliers can do the same thing. If you have some really key supply, not papers and pens, but something really, really key, and there's only 1 that can do that, or 2, well, then they can do the same thing to you. Oh, you need a few more of our machines. Well, that's great. You can have them in 3 years. And by the way, the price has tripled. And what are you going to do about it? Would you like to come to work for us? Yeah. You'll have much more impact if you work for us. Okay. So that's supplier power. It's better to have a number of customers, right? None of whom are extraordinarily important to you. There are always a range of customers, but preferably not just a few. A range of suppliers. The best thing is to be about like most of the IT companies I know, where you basically have to have Amazon, or you have to have cloud, you have to have paper, you have to have pen, you have to have a desk somewhere, maybe just a sofa somewhere. That's easy. Okay. The other ones are not. Barriers to entry are things like brand names. If you get thirsty and are interested in some water, are you going to go get Ramlös, or are you going to get Jane's Stockholm water? I bet you're going to choose Ramlös because you know what it tastes like, and you never know what Jane has put into that Stockholm water, right? So that's a brand name. If you have a brand name, then other people can't really get in, right? If you have a customer relationship and other people can't really get in, for instance, my husband hates to shop for clothes. And there's finally one guy, his name is Douglas, who has a store, who understands Bankton's, who says, right, so here are the trousers you need, and by the way, you probably need a sweater to go with a pair of blue trousers that we sold you 3 months ago. And Bankton's, my husband's name is Bankton's, very, very loyal, to the point where I got him a Christmas sweater from a place that wasn't Douglas, and he asked, is this from Douglas? And I said, no. And he said, well, let's return it, because I want Douglas to have control over my wardrobe. This is customer loyalty. No other men's clothing store can get in there at all. It's Banked is loyal to Douglas. You can also have barriers to exit. Say you've bought a whole bunch of airplanes. You have to keep flying them. Even if the amount of money you get per seat on that airplane is really very low, you still have to get a little bit in order to pay off your loans. Or if you drilled an oil well, you've put a lot of cost in there and you've got a lot of loans for it. You have to keep on pumping that as long as the money you're getting is just slightly over the amount it costs to just pump it, not all the original cost. So those are pretty important. Substitutes. Remember that picture I just showed you of a mini computer, a DEC 20? Those are dead now. They've been dead for quite some time. The PCs took them and killed them. And now the smartphones are killing the PCs, actually. It's just, you can see the new technology coming and going to kill, right? Fawcett had, I guess for most of you what's important is that this thing, which is what I generally use and like, is turning more into this thing, which I don't like quite as well, but that I'm old. This one here is getting better all the time, right? And the apps on it are actually better than the apps on the laptop, so it's getting better. So I'm pretty sure that the laptops will become more specialized. How many people actually have a standalone desktop thing that stays at their desk? I might have one you left. Yeah, you've had it for the same one for 5 or 10 years, probably. And there's something called Rivalry. And that is how god-awful are you in the industry to each other? The worst on this is life science. You'd think that those doctors and nurses were nice people. They're not. They're miserable to each other, just it's the worst of all. Which is one of the reasons I'm really rather leery. I've done 2 life science companies. I'm really rather leery of going into another one because you never know who's going to stick a knife in your back or start to infringe your patents. And then you can't defend yourself if you don't have money. So this is what I choose on, okay? All right, so one of my kinds of companies is like Bluetail and Teclo. People like you, really smart techies, they don't have anybody business. So I throw myself into the gap. And I'm the CEO, I'm the business person, and we make something incredibly, fantastically wonderful technical. And then we sell it to a few customers, but what we do is we just prove the value of it. And then we sell the company to one of the other ones in the industry. We're basically outsourced R&D. It works, it's profitable as hell. Right, so what we do is we try, because these people are so brilliant, they come up with ideas that this will be necessary in about 3 years. I'm sure you guys do too. I come up with none of these ideas, just so you know, none of the ideas that I've ever made a company of are mine. I have ideas that are lousy. It's everybody else's ideas that I make into companies. All right, so this is what we do. Bluetail was $150 million after 18 months. Teclo, I can't tell you, but it was pretty good too. Not quite as good. Another one of my kinds of companies is ones where they have the whole team. You have more driven business people, and then I maybe know some techies, or they're young business people, like in Klarna, where I can be pseudo-mom, basically, an experienced entrepreneur who's there quite a bit, and just say, right, so how to use your time, Mr. CEO? Company's 5% bigger than it was last week, which it was for Lensway. 5%, we were growing about 15-20% a year, or a month, and so every week was about 5% bigger. So I would go to Daniel and say, okay, so the company's 5% bigger. How'd you use your time? Is there any set of things you're doing which can be a job that we recruit somebody to. That's what I did quite a bit, okay? What do I care about there? The business people run the business, right? I tend to care that the tech people get respect. I want tech people to be owners of the company. I find that that works a whole lot better than outsourcing to God knows where. These ones can become quite large employers. The outsourced R&D, really not more than around 2030 before we sell it. These can be, I guess Klarna's up to 1,500 or 2,000 now. Lensway's 150. This, you generally don't start with barriers to entry. I care a lot about barriers to entry. We don't start with it, but we build them in time. So Lensway, it was actually hard to get a hold of contact lenses. Klarna has really good algorithms for deciding who's going to pay. So they can actually accept more deals, more payments through Klarna than their competitors can. So it's easy for a website to compare how many do they sell through Klarna and how many do they sell through XXS company, and Klarna's more, they'll go with Klarna, right? And this is either a trade sale, like we did with Lensway, we sold to their main competitor, Coastal Contacts, on the other side of the Atlantic, or an IPO, and I guess Klarna's on its way to IPO. Right, so my kind of people, you guys, girls, what you're generally lousy at is communication. Work on it, please. Okay, I know a guy that I got really frustrated with just yesterday, who's got a fantastic idea and a bunch of patents and a wonderful technical idea. And I said, right, so you need a business person. Why don't you talk to this business person, right? This is a gift. Here, you have somebody you need, right? And the business person then emailed and called, right? And this brilliant person didn't call back or email back for 3 days. 3 days. That means that contact is lost. That company possibility is lost. It's miserable. Okay? Really miserable. Another thing is that you tend to believe that you can figure out what people think about your product, how they're going to use it, with your own brilliant brains. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to talk to customers. You have to watch them use your product. You have to talk to them and ask them what they need. You have to talk all the time to your customers and then bring that knowledge in. It isn't true that they're necessarily right about everything, but they're right about quite a bit of stuff. So this is something you guys are generally, you might not feel that it's a bad thing, but most of I've had mentorships where I talk to a guy with an absolutely amazing program, and he says, it's fantastic, and this is back when. Microsoft has endorsed it, and Microsoft then was just enormous. It was the one, Microsoft has endorsed it. I said, great, how many have you sold? Sold? Do you have any people you call who would like to buy this? Oh, no. Maybe you should start calling people. Oh, who should I call? Well, find out this, somewhere around here you can start there. And I called and talked to him again 3 weeks later. He'd spent the intervening 3 weeks building up a beautiful CRM database and not called one customer. You laugh, it's true, okay? It's miserable, okay? But that's what I do for, basically that's what I do for people like this, right? Okay? So for my kind of people, if there's an upside risk is you've got too much money, what the hell am I going to do now? It's actually a real problem. It is a real problem, okay? A good friend of mine who's been in 3 startups now. I guess he was 26 when he had enough money for the rest of his life, right? What the hell do you do now? How are you going to contribute? What are you going to do with your life? All of the normal goals one has of enough money for a house and maybe a new bicycle. It's not easy, actually, okay? But it's a nice problem to have. It's really what's known as a first world problem, but it isn't easy. The downside risk for you guys, it's about, let's call 30 minutes, and I'm generous now to get a new job. More like 5. Why am I saying a roller coaster? Well, that's what being on a startup is like. Ups, Whoa, they called us. It's fantastic. They loved it. They want it. Oh, and downs. We're going to be in bankruptcy in about 3 weeks. What do we do now? Okay, it really is that way. And that's why I keep on doing startups, is I need that level of stimulus to be happy. I'm a junkie on that kind of excitement. And that's what it is. That's what I do. Right, so this is what I guess I was going to talk about. Do you have any questions? Does anybody have any startups? You need some new business people? My daughter's gotten old enough where she actually knows people who are useful. She's 26 soon, and I'm starting to say, okay, do you know anybody else from K? Do you know anybody else from Hondos? Do you know anybody else with a couple, 3, 5 years of experience? And they're coming. They are. It's great. So, questions?
So first, a big applause.
Oh, okay.
Before the questions here, I think you got an offer here, really. So come on. Questions?
Yeah, it's an offer. I've got, I think, 8 business people, all of them good in different ways, who could use technical ideas to turn into businesses with you all, right? Okay,
Yeah.
You first, yeah?
Wait. No.
Back.
Okay. Hello. Yes, I'm doing small-scale fish farming indoors, and we try to make a food production in Sweden.
Fantastic.
We are competing with imported fish that is a very low price, but is then produced on totally different regulations than are in Sweden. So what we have to do is to get very clever and do this with good animal health and welfare, and still make a profit. So the idea is to go small and do a lot of small farms.
Franchising, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, but have you any idea of how we could get going on this?
Sure. Right, so that sounds like a franchise operation, like McDonald's or iTrim, right? So you need to, and franchising is well understood and well known how to do it. You probably need to build a brand name around your locally produced, sustainable, high quality, healthy fish. Don't destroy the mangroves, don't destroy the whatever. So you want to do a brand name strategy, and you probably want to do a franchising strategy. And in order to do that right, you need an investor who's done franchising before. There's a guy called Lederhausen, who is the son of the guys who started McDonald's, who does do investments into franchising. He's absolutely brilliant and lovely. So go ahead, Lederhausen, franchising, build your brand, and it's probably around sustainability, Swedish health, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Which one?
Thank you very much for the stimulating talk. I would like to have something more from the talk. And the question that I have come up to ask is, what are the 3 books that you have read recently which somehow reflect your lessons that you have learned backwards, yet also stimulate you to look forwards or in the future?
Okay, I sold a company 3 weeks ago. And it was a hell of a problem. The due diligence was 329 questions long, and most of the questions need to be answered like, here you have a file structure. And I did most of that myself, because we were a small company. So I actually have, what I've been reading and doing recently has been more with my other interests, and that's basically a lot of national economics. I've been thinking national economics is pretty exciting since around 2007, and it got really very exciting around 2008. So it's a lot of that stuff. I don't think it really helps you. If you want books that actually work for startups, then I would say start off with Influence by a guy named Cialdini. I'll write that down somewhere. How? Here. This one is how you get people to do what you want them to do, as in buy your products. Very important. There's one called spin selling. By Rackham. How to sell complicated stuff. There's one called Lean Startup by Rice. This is the current Bible of how to start companies. That's what everybody does if you're doing an IT low-cost startup. Okay, if you're doing something else like fish farming, it's got to be different. But that's an IT startup. If you're looking for most other kinds of startups, then I think you probably ought to do Crossing the Chasm. By Moore. Okay? That's all old stuff. I'm old.
Someone else? No. So I'm representing government money, and I once visited Berlin, and their advice was from a person similar to yourself was never ever take government money because it's just slow, lots of reporting, and just a drag. So what's your perspective on accepting or aggressively looking for public funding or going at it for real with private stuff?
Can I get that, go away and use more of this stuff? Okay, over here. Right. But he can't see it from there. Right. So what I think about government money is that it has its place. Okay. One of the problems we have in Sweden, or the great advantages we have in Sweden, is what's known as a welfare state. Okay, which means that people who want to start a startup, if it fails, they will still get their diabetes taken care of. If it fails, their kids will still get schooling. If it fails, they probably will still be able to stay in the same house, even, and definitely in the same school district. This is enormous. You have no idea how big this is. I started one of my first ones, which isn't there, when I was on maternity leave, and my kids slept during the day sometimes, and therefore I could start a company, obviously. And just the money from that made it possible. Okay, so to start there, the welfare state is huge, and that's government money. That's all of our taxes supporting each other. The next thing is incubators. Incubators are fantastic. Okay, it maybe is important to tell you that my daughter is doing an IT startup called Volumental. Honestly, I could have funded her. My husband and I could have funded her. My husband is a pricing expert, and I'm pretty good at starting companies. We could have helped her, right? We have enough money. We have enough companies. We could have done this. What do? We say, go to Sting and try your darndest to get into Sting, because it really will help you. Okay? So that has to be a good recommendation. If I send my kid there, it's good enough for you too. Okay? Next thing is then money that goes directly to the projects. Now, since our old age pensions are generally paid for, since our kids' education is paid for, and since we don't have to pay much when we get very sick, there isn't much reason for us to save large amounts of money here in Sweden, which means that most of us cannot spend a year or two without a salary. Most of us can't spend a month without a salary, right? So what Omni does, so you have first welfare state, you have incubators, and then you have Omni, and they have a sort of a spread of different kinds of money you can get, and a lot of it's basically for free if the project doesn't turn out. That is extraordinarily important. You can get 15,000 or something to get somebody to do a market research. You can get 300,000 to get going a bit. You can, and then they will do matching money with people like me so that you don't have to get diluted as much. Right? If I buy some shares in your company, you have a smaller share of your company, I have a bigger share. If you can get government money in, then you're stronger in your negotiation. That's very good. And then after that, you have, for research-based projects, there's something called Vanoza, usually. You can get quite a bit of money out of that. It's all ways to get money without giving up ownership of your company too early, and I think all that's great. I just invested in a company just where my money was matched against European something or other, European whatever, AEF, European Investment Fund money, and I thought that was great because they got 10 million from European Investment Fund, but in order to get that, they need to get 10 million from private people, and I thought that, it seems to have worked just fine. So I would say that in general, fine, go ahead, especially these things, which are ways to spread the opportunity of starting companies a little wider. Otherwise, it's only the rich ones that can do it. I don't think that's okay. Social mobility, yes. Anything else?
Okay, I
There's
think
one over there. One more.
Okay, I take a short run here. This is the final question. Yeah, Dag.
Hello. Thank you for a great talk. I'm Dag Forsen from SICS Swedish ICT. And I have a question with regards to SMEs and public procurement. As you know, we have a public health system, and a lot of the services and stuff sold in Sweden are using public procurement. And I'm also working with a growth project in Stockholm here called Stockholm Digital Health. And the idea is to create a lot of new tech jobs in that sector, in the health sector.
I think Daria and I should
But
go up
I
and do
saw
a
when I
pair
saw
of
this,
events.
I forgot about this Porter's 5 Forces. I saw it it's like 20 years old, right? But I think it's so applicable when talking about the situation we have for the SMEs. We have very few limited number of players, almost a monopoly in many cases, and it's very hard for them to have to be able to compete. It takes a very long time for them to participate in these procurements, and it's also hard for them. Do you have any tips for SMEs that would like to go into this business? I don't know if you have experience from it, but I think it's an unfair situation.
I did two of these, right? I did Ellen, and I did Tobii, which sent to handicap, ALS sufferers. Actually, I had a talk something like this for Karolinska a few days ago, and it was basically the same slides, but okay, so what's the problem with life science? What are the general problems in life science? Daria and I are both part of an organization called the Innovation Council, and one of the things that Daria is pushing, I would say, is digital health. You might have heard her during her talk, a little bit, digitalization, digital health, getting open data there, okay? And one of the things that I'm pushing is more access for SMEs into the procurement process. There's a guy there named Charles Edqvist who's interested in redoing the public procurement process. And there it looks like the law is changing to do a little bit more innovation procurement, something like that. So we're trying, okay, to make it easier, but it's a hell of a problem because those SMEs have got too few, too strong customers. Plus, there's a big problem in that the person who actually needs something and is willing to pay for it is often not the one who needs something is not the one paying for it, okay? So that when I was doing Tobii, right, so Tobii knows where you're looking on a screen. If you look for long enough, it can be click. That means you can steer a computer with your eyes. When do you need this? When you're about to die with motor neuron disease or you have bad cerebral palsy. Motor neuron disease is one of these things you really hope you don't get. It's about 5 years between disease and death on general. Stephen Hawking has survived a lot longer. Sometimes it's only a few months. Okay. You would think that it doesn't happen very often. It's catastrophic. It's one of these nightmare things. You would think that the insurance companies would pay for these immediately, but they don't. 3 times when I was doing that for Tobii, my American employees ended up after the funeral with that thing because the insurance companies just wouldn't pay and delayed. So it's miserable and it's tough. And what I can do, if you give me your card, I will send you the slides that I did for Karolinska, but it's not easy, okay? It's not. I think that was it. I didn't have any more time, right?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you very much.